The morning Maya died, the world didn't stop spinning. I remember thinking it should have, that somewhere, somehow, the universe should have recognized that something irreplaceable had been torn from its fabric. But the clock on the hospital wall kept ticking. The fluorescent lights kept humming. A nurse somewhere down the hall laughed at something on her phone. 7 years old. That's all the time she got. 7 birthdays, 7 Christmases, 7 first days of school. The doctor said it happened fast. The other driver never saw the stop sign, and Maya, strapped into her booster seat exactly as she should have been, simply wasn't lucky. They used different words, of course, medical terms that made it sound clinical, inevitable, but I knew what they meant. My daughter's life had come down to the flip of a cosmic coin, and we'd lost. I don't remember much about those first days. Grief does that. It fragments time, makes everything both endless and instantaneous. I remember my husband David's face, carved hollow by loss. I remember the weight of Maya's favorite stuffed rabbit in my hands, still smelling faintly of her strawberry shampoo. I remember the funeral director's soft voice asking questions I couldn't comprehend. What kind of wood? What color lining? What flowers? White roses, I'd whispered, because Maya had picked them for my birthday just 2 months before, proud of herself for remembering my favorite. The man had nodded, written it down, and I'd wanted to scream at him that none of this should be happening, that we should be planning her soccer season, not her funeral. It was 3 days before the service when Clara called. My sister's voice came through the phone bright and sharp, the way it always did when she was excited about something. "Elena, darling, I need to know if you're absolutely certain about Saturday." I stood in Maya's room, holding the phone with one hand and one of her dresses with the other, a purple one with butterflies that she'd worn to her school's spring concert. "What about Saturday?" "The funeral, obviously." She said it like I'd asked about the weather. "It's just that I've already sent out invitations for my party." The dress slipped from my fingers. "Your party?" "My birthday party, Elena. The big 4-0. You know I've been planning this for months." There was irritation in her voice now, the particular brand she reserved for when she felt I wasn't paying adequate attention to her life. "The country club is booked, the caterer's been paid, over 100 people have RSVP'd. I sat down on Maya's bed, the mattress creaking under my weight. Her pillow still held the indent of her head. "Clara, my daughter's funeral is on Saturday." "Yes, I know." A pause, then a sigh that traveled through the phone like wind through a cemetery. "Look, I understand this is difficult for you, but couldn't you move it to Sunday or even Friday? It's not like—" She caught herself, but not fast enough. "It's not like what?" My voice was very quiet. "It's not like Maya will know the difference." The words hung between us, each one a small knife. "I'm sorry, that came out wrong. I just mean that my party has been planned for so long, and it's not fair to expect everyone to cancel their plans for a minor event." Minor event. She called my daughter's funeral a minor event? I hung up the phone. Not dramatically, not with force. I simply pressed the end button and set it down on Maya's nightstand, next to the book we'd been reading together, something about a brave mouse who saved her family. We'd been 2 chapters from the end. We'd never finish it now. The phone rang again almost immediately. I didn't answer. It rang 6 more times over the next hour. Then the texts started coming. Clara's messages shifted from indignant to defensive to accusatory. How dare I hang up on her? She was trying to be practical. Someone had to think about the living. Didn't I realize how much money she'd spent? How much this party meant to her? Life goes on, Elena. You can't expect the world to stop. But that was exactly what I expected, what I needed. For just one day, I needed the world to acknowledge that mine had ended. David found me there hours later, still sitting on Maya's bed, the phone dark and silent beside me. He read Clara's messages over my shoulder, his jaw tightening with each word. "Cancel the funeral," he said quietly. I looked up at him, startled. "What?" "Cancel it, or postpone it. Let Clara have her party." His eyes were red-rimmed but steady. "We'll have a private service." Just us, your parents, my mother, the people who actually loved her. It was tempting, God, it was tempting, to avoid the conflict, the inevitable family drama, the way Clara would somehow make even this about her. But then I thought about Maya's classmates, her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, who'd called me crying, the parents from her soccer team who'd sent cards, the neighbor who'd taught her to ride her bike. They deserved to say goodbye too. No, I said, the funeral stays on Saturday. David nodded, understanding without explanation. He'd learned, over 12 years of marriage, that my stubbornness was quiet but absolute. Clara had learned nothing in 40 years of being my sister. The next morning my mother called. I'd been expecting it. Elena, sweetheart. Her voice was carefully neutral, the tone she used when trying to broker peace between her daughters. Clara told me there's been a misunderstanding about Saturday. There's no misunderstanding. I was folding Maya's clothes, placing them in boxes marked for donation. Each small shirt, each tiny sock was another goodbye. Maya's funeral is Saturday at 10. Clara's party is Saturday at 7. Couldn't you? No. But Clara's already. Mom, I stopped folding, pressed my palms flat against the dresser. Your granddaughter is dead. She's dead, and we're burying her on Saturday. And if Clara wants to throw a party the same day, that's her choice. But don't ask me to move my daughter's funeral to accommodate my sister's birthday celebration. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then, quietly, Clara says you're being dramatic, that you're trying to ruin her milestone birthday out of jealousy. Jealousy? I almost laughed. What did I have to be jealous of now? Clara had her health, her husband, her 2 perfect teenage sons who rolled their eyes when she hugged them back anyway. She had her intact life, her unbroken heart, her ability to think about parties and caterers and what dress to wear. I had a daughter-shaped hole in my chest that would never heal. Think whatever you want, Mom, I said, and went back to folding clothes that would never be worn again. The family chose sides quickly, efficiently, the way they always did when Clara and I disagreed. Her supporters, mostly her husband Richard's family and our mother's sisters, argued that I was being unreasonable. Life was for the living. Clara had been planning this party for months. Wouldn't Maya want us to celebrate life? My supporters, David's family, my father, quietly but firmly, and surprisingly, Clara's own son, Jeremy, said nothing that needed to be said aloud. They simply sent flowers for the funeral and their regrets for the party. Clara escalated. She called our aunts, our cousins, mutual friends. She posted on social media about the importance of choosing joy, even in difficult times, and how some people tried to dim others' light with their darkness. She never mentioned Maya by name. She never mentioned she was talking about her 7-year-old niece's funeral. The post got 63 likes and dozens of comments about what an inspiration she was. I watched it all from a distance, the way you watch a storm through glass. I had funeral arrangements to make, a eulogy to write that I could somehow deliver without shattering completely, a husband and parents to comfort while my own heart hemorrhaged. Clara's tantrum was background noise. But grief is strange. It makes you notice things you might have missed before, see patterns that were always there but hidden under the everyday chaos of living. As I sat in the funeral home, choosing between 2 nearly identical verses for the program, I found myself thinking about all the other times Clara had done this. My college graduation, she'd announced her engagement at my celebration dinner. My wedding, she'd worn white and given a toast that was entirely about her own marriage. Maya's birth, she'd called to tell me she was pregnant with her 2nd child while I was still in the hospital, still learning to breastfeed, still recovering from 23 hours of labor. Every milestone of mine had been eclipsed by something of hers, and I'd let it happen, over and over, because that's what you did with Clara. You moved aside and let her shine, or you dealt with the fallout. I'd learned early that fighting her was exhausting and ultimately pointless. She had more energy for conflict than I did, more appetite for drama, more skill at rallying troops to her cause. But this was different. This was my daughter. Thursday before the funeral, Clara made her final play. She came to my house, the first time she'd visited since Maya died. I answered the door in the same clothes I'd worn for 2 days, my hair unwashed, my face a map of grief. Clara stood on my porch in a designer dress and full makeup, looking like she was headed to a business lunch. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into the house. I followed her to the living room, where she'd already made herself comfortable on the sofa. The same sofa where Maya had sprawled just 2 weeks ago, doing her homework while watching cartoons, somehow managing both with the mysterious multitasking power of 7-year-olds. "I've found a solution," Clara announced. "The funeral can stay at 10, but I need you to keep it short, an hour maximum, and then you and David will come to my party." I stared at her. "You want us to come to your birthday party after our daughter's funeral?" "It would show family unity." She examined her manicured nails. "And honestly, Elena, it would be good for you. Sitting around crying won't bring her back." Something inside me went very still. Not calm. Calm suggests peace. This was the stillness of a held breath, of the moment before a glass hits the ground, of the pause between lightning and thunder. "Get out," I said quietly. "Elena, get out of my house." She stood, offended. "I'm trying to help you move forward." "You're trying to make sure you remain the center of attention, even on the day we bury my child." I opened the front door. "Get out and don't come back." She left in a huff of expensive perfume and indignation. I closed the door and leaned against it, feeling something shift inside me. Not healing, I wouldn't insult my grief by calling it that, but a kind of clarity, sharp and cold as winter air. That night, I told David I wanted to do something special for the funeral, something Maya would have loved. He was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at his laptop screen without seeing it, a habit he'd developed since the accident. "What kind of something?" he asked. "I want to give everyone a butterfly to release, monarchs if we can find them." Maya had been obsessed with butterflies, had spent hours in our garden trying to photograph them with her little camera. "And I want to ask people to write messages for her, things they wish they'd said or favorite memories. We'll collect them in a book." David's eyes focused for the first time in days. "She would like that." "And I want to invite her whole class, with their parents, and her soccer team, and anyone else who loved her." "Clara won't like a bigger guest list." He stopped himself, shook his head. "Sorry, I don't know why I said that." I did. We'd all been trained to consider Clara's reaction to everything, to factor her feelings into every family decision. It was reflexive, like flinching from heat. "I don't care what Clara likes," I said, and meant it. Friday night, the eve of the funeral, I couldn't sleep. I wandered the house like a ghost, touching things Maya had touched, trying to memorize the weight of her absence. At 3 a.m, I found myself at my laptop, scrolling through photos of her. Maya at the beach, shrieking with laughter as waves chased her up the fan. Maya on her first day of kindergarten, backpack almost bigger than she was. Maya last Christmas, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up the camera she'd begged for. An email notification popped up. Clara had sent a mass message to the family email list, the one she'd created and moderated with the efficiency of a small dictator. The subject line read, "Tomorrow's celebration of life." I almost deleted it unread. Almost. But that same strange clarity that had been growing since she'd left my house made me click open. "Dear family, as you know, tomorrow is my 40th birthday celebration, a milestone I've been planning for months. It saddens me that some family members have chosen to create unnecessary conflict by scheduling other events on this day, but I believe in focusing on joy and positivity. For those attending both events tomorrow, I want to be clear that my party has a strict dress code, cocktail attire, bright colors only, no black, no morning clothes. This is a celebration of life, and I won't have anyone bringing negative energy into my special day. I've attached the schedule for the party, including the special surprise I've planned for 8 p.m. Don't be late. Also, I've heard some people plan to skip my party entirely. I want you to know that I'm keeping track of who truly supports me. Family stands by family, and I won't forget who chose a minor obligation over my milestone birthday. Love and light, Clara." Minor obligation? She'd upgraded Maya's funeral from minor event to minor obligation. I read the email 3 times, each reading stoking something cold and patient in my chest. Then I opened a new message window and began to type. Dear family, Maya's funeral will begin at 10 a.m. tomorrow at Riverside Chapel. We will be releasing butterflies in her memory at the conclusion of the service, weather permitting. Everyone is welcome to attend, and any dress that shows respect is appropriate. For those who knew Maya, we're collecting written memories and messages for a book we'll keep. If you'd like to contribute, please bring your message tomorrow or send it to me when you're able. Thank you to everyone who has reached out with love and support during this time. Your kindness has meant more than you know. Elena. I sent it and closed the laptop. Then I did something I hadn't done since Maya died. I planned. Not the numb, automatic planning of funeral arrangements. This was different. This was the kind of careful, deliberate planning I'd done when organizing Maya's surprise birthday party or preparing for a big presentation at work. I made lists, I made phone calls to people I knew Clara had contacted, I gathered information. By dawn, I understood exactly who would be at the funeral and who would be at the party. I knew who had agonized over the choice and who had made it without hesitation. I knew which cousins had called Clara a monster behind her back while RSVPing yes to her party out of fear. I knew which aunts had proclaimed that blood is blood while choosing cocktails over saying goodbye to a child. And I knew exactly what I was going to do about it. The morning of the funeral arrived gray and still, the sky holding rain like an unspilled tear. I dressed carefully, not in the black dress I'd bought specially, but in purple, Maya's favorite color. David looked at me questioningly, and I simply said she would have wanted purple. He changed his black tie for a purple one. We arrived at the chapel early. The funeral director had done everything perfectly. White roses everywhere, photos of Maya through her 7 short years arranged on boards, the butterfly release station set up outside. Parents from Maya's school were already there, some of them people I barely knew, but who had tears in their eyes as they hugged me. Mrs. Patterson, Maya's teacher, pressed a hand-drawn card into my hand. From the class, she whispered. Every child made a page. By 10 o'clock, the chapel was full, fuller than I'd expected. Every seat taken, people standing in the back. I recognized some faces from Clara's party list. Jeremy, my nephew, in the front row looking miserable and defiant. Our father, steady as stone, holding my mother's hand while she wept. David's entire family, a wall of quiet support. But also strangers, a woman who introduced herself as the crossing guard at Maya's school, the teenage girl who'd been Maya's swimming instructor last summer, the elderly man who ran the corner store where Maya bought candy with her allowance, who closed his shop to attend. Clara wasn't there. Neither was Richard. Their absence was a presence, a shadow everyone could see but no one mentioned. The service was beautiful and terrible. David spoke about Maya's laugh, how it could fill a room and make strangers smile. I read The Giving Tree, which Maya had made me read to her hundreds of times, my voice breaking only twice. Jeremy stood up unexpectedly and talked about how his little cousin had taught him to see butterflies not as insects, but as flying flowers, and how he'd never see them any other way again. When we released the butterflies, the sun broke through the clouds for just a moment, lighting them up like stained glass windows against the gray sky. Someone gasped. Several people were crying. I held David's hand and watched the monarchs spiral upward, carrying whatever part of Maya they could hold. It was noon when the last guests left the cemetery. Noon when Clara's preparations would be shifting into high gear. Noon when I put the second part of my plan into motion. I need to stop by Clara's party, I told David. He looked at me sharply. Elena, no, you don't have to. I want to drop something off. I touched his cheek. I won't stay, I promise. He studied my face, looking for something. Whatever he found there made him nod. I'll come with you. No. I kissed him gently. Go home. Be with your mother. I'll be there soon. The country club was 40 minutes away, in the kind of neighborhood where lawns looked like green carpet and houses pretended they weren't trying to impress each other. Clara had chosen it specifically, I knew, because it was the most expensive venue in town. The parking lot was already half full when I arrived, expensive cars gleaming in the afternoon sun that had finally decided to appear. I didn't go inside, not yet. Instead, I waited in my car, watching through the tall windows as the party assembled itself. Clara, in a dress that probably cost more than most people's rent, directing caterers and adjusting flower arrangements. Richard, already drinking, already checked out. The aunts and cousins and family friends who'd chosen this over the funeral, mingling with champagne flutes, their laughter bright and sharp. At 2 o'clock, I made a phone call. "Mrs. Chen, this is Elena Matthews. Yes, thank you for coming this morning. It meant so much. I have an unusual favor to ask." Mrs. Chen ran the local newspaper. Her daughter had been in Maya's class. She'd cried during the service. By 3 o'clock, 2 more calls. The local news station that had covered the accident. The social media influencer who lived 3 houses down from Clara and had a following of 50,000. By 4 o'clock, I walked into the country club. The party was in full swing. Clara had outdone herself. Live band, ice sculptures, a champagne tower. Everything screamed, "Look at me, admire me, envy me." The guests were laughing, dancing, celebrating life just as Clara had demanded. She saw me immediately. Her face went through several expressions: surprise, annoyance, then a sort of triumphant satisfaction. I was here. I'd come to her party after all. She'd won. "Elena!" She glided over, arms outstretched as if she hadn't called my daughter's funeral a minor event. "I'm so glad you came. I knew you'd realize that celebrating life is what Maya would have wanted." Several heads turned. The music seemed to quiet slightly, or maybe that was my imagination. "I brought you something," I said, pulling an envelope from my purse. Clara's eyes lit up. A gift. Submission. Apology. Everything she'd expected from me eventually. She opened it there, in front of everyone, because of course she did. Clara had never met a moment she couldn't make public. Inside was a single photograph. Maya and Clara from last Christmas, my daughter on her aunt's lap, both of them laughing at something off camera. I remembered taking it, remembered thinking how much Maya adored her aunt, how Clara could make her giggle like no one else when she chose to pay attention. Clara's face changed as she looked at it. For just a moment, something human flickered there. Then she tucked it away, the mask sliding back into place. "That's very sweet," she said loudly, for the benefit of the watching crowd, "though I do wish you'd chosen something more appropriate for the occasion. This is a celebration, after all." "You're right," I said, matching her volume. "This is your celebration, your special day, the day you've been planning for months, the day you decided was more important than saying goodbye to Maya." The silence spread like spilled wine. "Elena," Clara hissed, her public smile faltering. "This isn't the place." "Where is the place, Clara?" I looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every family member who'd chosen to be here. Was it the hospital when you never came? Was it my house when you called the funeral a minor event? Was it this morning when you threw a party while we buried her? "You're being dramatic." "Am I?" I pulled out my phone, showed her the screen. "Because Mrs. Chen from the register doesn't think so. Neither does Channel 7. They're very interested in the woman who threw herself a birthday party during her 7-year-old niece's funeral. They're particularly interested in the email you sent, calling it a minor obligation." Clara went white. Around us, phones were already coming out, people checking social media, seeing the story that was just beginning to break. "You wouldn't?" "I already have." I put my phone away. "Your party, your perfect milestone birthday, will always be remembered as the day you celebrated while your sister buried her child. Every person here will be in those photos, celebrating with you. Their names, their faces, their choice, all public record." The band had stopped playing. The entire room was silent, watching us. "You vindictive," Clara started. "Grieving," I corrected. "The word you're looking for is grieving. I'm a grieving mother who buried her daughter this morning while her sister drank champagne and demanded everyone wear bright colors." I turned to address the room, all these people who'd made their choice. "Enjoy your party," I said. "Dance, drink, celebrate. Take lots of pictures, post them online with timestamps. Show the world exactly who you are and what you chose today. Because Maya's friends, her teachers, her soccer team, the parents who actually showed up this morning, they're all going to see, and they're going to remember." I walked toward the door, then stopped, turned back. Oh, and Clara, that surprise at 8 o'clock? Channel 7 will be here to cover it. They're thinking of calling the segment Parties and Priorities, A Family Divided. I'm sure you'll give them exactly the footage they're hoping for. I left then, walking through the silent room, past the ice sculptures that were already beginning to melt, past the champagne tower that no one was touching anymore, past the pile of gifts that suddenly looked obscene. Behind me, I heard the explosion of voices, anger, panic, accusations. Someone was crying. Someone else was leaving. Clara's voice rose above it all, shrill and desperate, trying to regain control of her ruined party. I sat in my car for a moment, feeling empty and full simultaneously. Then I drove home to David, to the house that echoed with Maya's absence, to the purple butterflies we'd painted on her bedroom wall that would stay there forever. The news story aired that night. By morning, it had gone viral. Woman throws lavish party during niece's funeral became the kind of story people shared with outraged comments. Clara's social media, usually full of perfect photos and inspirational quotes, went dark. I heard from my mother that she'd had to take time off work, that Richard was furious, that Jeremy had moved in with his girlfriend to avoid the fallout. I felt no satisfaction. How could I? My daughter was still gone. The world had still kept spinning without her. All I'd done was make visible something that had always been true about Clara, that she was someone who could value a party over a child's funeral, who could call grief a minor inconvenience. 2 weeks later, a package arrived. No return address, but I recognized Clara's handwriting. Inside was a silver picture frame, expensive, of course. Clara never did anything cheaply. In it was a photo I'd never seen before. Clara and Maya at the park, my daughter on the swings, my sister pushing her, both of them caught mid-laugh in a moment of pure joy. There was a note. I did love her. I kept the photo, not for Clara, but for Maya, who had loved her aunt with the uncomplicated heart of a child who didn't yet understand that love could be conditional, performative, something adults could set aside when it became inconvenient. Months passed. The seasons changed in that relentless way they do, ignoring human grief. Clara and I didn't speak. She didn't come to Christmas. She didn't call on Maya's birthday, what would have been her 8th. The family split into careful factions, navigating holidays and gatherings like diplomatic missions. But I heard things. Clara's marriage was struggling. Her party planning business had dissolved after the story went viral. Jeremy still wouldn't speak to her. She'd started therapy, my mother told me hopefully, as if therapy could retroactively change the choice she'd made. A year after the funeral, I received another package. This time it contained a journal, every page filled with Clara's handwriting. Letters to Maya. Dozens of them, dated from the day of the funeral forward. Apologies, memories, promises to a ghost. The last entry was dated the day before. I chose myself over saying goodbye to you. I'll spend the rest of my life knowing that. Your mother gave me what I deserved, a party no one will ever let me forget. I burned the journal, not out of anger, but because Maya couldn't read it, and I wouldn't carry Clara's guilt for her. She'd made her choice in the harsh light of day, with full knowledge of what she was doing. Living with it was her burden, not mine. David found me in the backyard, watching the pages turn to ash and smoke. From Clara? He asked. I nodded. Do you forgive her? I thought about it, really considered it. Forgiveness would be the graceful thing, the healing thing, what all the grief counselors would probably recommend. No, I said finally. Some choices can't be undone. Some things can't be forgiven. She called our daughter's funeral a minor event. She made our grief about her. She exists now, and I exist, but we don't exist for each other anymore. That's sad, David said softly. Yes, I agreed, but not as sad as a mother burying her child while her sister throws a party. We stood together, watching the smoke rise and disappear, like butterflies, like daughters, like everything we love and can't keep. 5 years have passed now. 5 years of birthdays Maya didn't have, Christmases without her, first days of school that weren't. The grief has changed shape but not weight. It's smoother now, worn down by time like a stone in water, but just as heavy. Clara and I remain strangers who share blood. I see her sometimes, at the grocery store or the bank. We nod, polite and distant as acquaintances. She looks older, smaller somehow, as if that party took something from her she couldn't get back. Good. Some lessons should cost us. Every year on the anniversary, I release butterflies at Maya's grave. People come, fewer now, but still some. Mrs. Patterson, retired now but faithful. Jeremy, who never misses it, who brings his own daughter now, a toddler with Maya's same wild curls. David, always David, steady as sunrise. Clara sent a message through my mother this year, asking if she could come. I said no, not out of cruelty, but because some bridges, once burned, are meant to stay ash. She had her chance to say goodbye and chose a champagne tower instead. That choice stands forever, immutable as death itself. Last week, Jeremy brought his daughter to visit. She's 3 now, running through my house with the same chaotic energy Maya had. He named her Maya Rose, he told me quietly, so she's never forgotten. I watched her chase Bubbles in the backyard, in the same spot where her namesake once built fairy houses out of twigs and leaves, and felt something that wasn't quite peace, but wasn't quite pain either. Does Clara know, I asked, about her name? Yes, Jeremy's jaw tightened. She wasn't invited to the naming ceremony. Some things you don't come back from. He was right. Some things you don't come back from. You just learn to live on the other side of them, in the country of afterward, where the population is smaller than you expected and the language is silence. Tonight, I sit in Maya's room, still her room, always her room, and write this story. Not for Clara, who will never read it. Not for the family, who have chosen their sides and dug their trenches. But for Maya, or the memory of Maya, or the space where Maya should be. The truth is simple and unchangeable. My sister called my daughter's funeral a minor event and scheduled her party for the same day. She chose celebration over grief, herself over us, a party over goodbye. I gave her consequences that matched her choice, a party that became her ruin, a celebration that became her shame. Was it revenge? Maybe. Was it justice? Maybe that too. Mostly, it was truth made visible, selfishness dragged into the light where everyone could see it clearly. The purple butterflies on the wall have faded slightly in 5 years of sunlight. I've been told I should paint over them, move forward, redecorate, but I won't. They stay like the indent in her pillow I've never smoothed, like the last library book we never returned, like the half-eaten package of her favorite cookies. Clara took the day my daughter was meant to rest. She took what should have been sacred and made it competition, what should have been communal grief and made it about herself. But in the end, I took something from her too. Not her party, though that was ruined. Not her reputation, though that was destroyed. I took her ability to pretend she was anything other than what she'd shown herself to be. Someone who could dance while her niece was buried, who could demand bright colors while her sister wore mourning purple, who could call a child's death a minor event and mean it. She took the day my daughter was meant to rest. I took the peace she'll never know again, the peace of being truly remembered. The butterflies we released that day, some people said they saw them for weeks after, visiting gardens all over town. Scientifically impossible, of course. Monarchs don't stay. They migrate, they move on, they disappear into whatever comes next. But I like the idea that they lingered, that they carried something of Maya with them to every flower they touched, every garden they graced. That's what grief is, maybe, not an ending but a migration, carrying love from one form to another, from presence to memory, from is to was. And sometimes, if you're very lucky or very cursed, you get to see exactly who will migrate with you and who will stay behind, drinking champagne in their bright clothes, pretending the journey isn't happening at all. Tomorrow is Maya's birthday. She would have been 12. Clara won't call, won't send a card, won't acknowledge it. But Jeremy will come with his daughter, and David will make a cake we won't eat, and will release butterflies that will disappear into the sky like everything beautiful and temporary. And somewhere, in a house I no longer visit, Clara will look at the calendar and remember the party that destroyed her, the choice that defined her, the minor event that became the major ending of everything we ever were to each other. That's her migration, her journey, her burden to carry. Mine is simpler: to love a daughter who isn't here, to release butterflies in her memory, and to know that when forced to choose between a funeral and a party, I chose right. I chose Maya. I chose grief. I chose to honor what was lost instead of celebrating myself. The night is quiet now. Somewhere, a child is sleeping safely in their bed. Somewhere, a mother is checking on them one more time. Somewhere, sisters are laughing together, not knowing how fragile that laughter is, how easily one choice can shatter it forever. But here, in this room with faded purple butterflies and too many memories, I sit with my grief like an old friend. It doesn't comfort me, grief never does, but it keeps me company in the country of afterward, where we speak the language of was and remember when the world still had Maya in it. And that's enough. It has to be, because she took the day my daughter was meant to rest, but she'll never take the love that made that day matter. That's mine, forever and always, minor to no one, major to me, the only event that ever truly mattered. Loving Maya, mourning Maya, remembering Maya. The rest is just noise. The rest is just other people's parties playing on while the butterflies rise.